Hi, my name is Jennifer Matos. I'm the Executive Director of the Noah Webster House and West Hartford Historical Society, and I'm bringing you the 23rd edition of our Armchair Tour of West Hartford history, and I'm coming to you right from the center of town at the Town Hall building. Now, if you lived in town up until about 1970, you would know this building as the Old Hall High School. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of this building and schools in general in West Hartford, and then how it became the town hall that we know of today. So first of all, to understand the history of the Old Hall High School, we need to understand a little bit about the history of education. And you'll remember probably a couple months ago now, when we talked about the Old West District School, we talked a little bit about a man named William H. Hall, who of course the high school is named after. So at the time when William Hall lived here, there were district schools. So you remember that the town was divided into districts, and each district was responsible for maintaining its own school. So there was a school here in the Center District, and that was a school that was here from around 1745. It would have been a school that Noah Webster attended as a child, and then later William Hall attended as well. So a new school opened up in around 1865 called the Center District School, and this was located at about 14 North Main Street, which is just north of Farmington Avenue on the east side of the street. So that housed all levels of children, and then in 1872 the second floor became the first high school in town. And guess who became the principal? It was William H. Hall. So William H. Hall was the first principal of the first high school here in West Hartford. At the time, in 1872, he had 38 high school pupils, and the expense of running the school was about $500. Now, it stayed on the second floor of that building until a new center school building was built in 1896. So the new center school was on the corner of Memorial and Raymond Road, and as I said, opened in 1896 and was shared by both the high school and an elementary level. So the high school took over 2 rooms of the building, and the elementary school took over 6 rooms until about 1910. In 1910, the lower grades moved to a new grammar school, which was known as Whitman School, and Center School became entirely used as a high school, and there were 173 students, and the cost to maintain that high school annually was about $10,000. But even then, it became clear that the school was not going to be adequate for the number of students. The population of the town was really increasing at that point. So for instance, in 1915, there were about 1,300 students enrolled in the entire town, and that number grew rapidly so that it more than doubled. So by 1925, there were 3,200 students across the district. So at that point, even though this new center school was operating as a high school, it really became clear that a new school would need to be built. So beginning around 1914, talks were underway in the town to consider building a very large high school. So the new high school was determined to be right here on South Main Street where we're standing. And of course, it was named after William H. Hall. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about William H. Hall. We already have established he was the first principal of the first high school, so that's a great reason to have the really first fantastic high school be named after him. But he also was just a very important person in West Hartford history. So he was born here in town in 1854, and as I said, attended the Center District School. He later attended Amherst College and completed a secondary course at Monson Academy in Monson, Massachusetts. And when he returned, he became a teacher at Center District School, the school that he had attended as a youth. And then, of course, he becomes principal of the first high school that was on the second floor of the building. In 1897, William Hall is actually appointed as the superintendent of West Hartford schools, and he held that position for 25 years until he retired in 1922. And at that point, the Board of Ed actually named him a superintendent emeritus or an assistant superintendent. And so when the idea of the new high school came about, the Board of Ed voted unanimously to name the school after William Hall. So he actually laid the cornerstone for the high school that would be named after him on September 10th, 1923. And a time capsule was actually placed under that cornerstone, and I'm going to share the contents, the list of contents of that time capsule on our Facebook page. So once Hall High School opened in 1924, the center school was used for elementary school purposes and then later used as municipal offices and eventually torn down in the 1970s. And the high school, was successful and did the trick for the town for about 30 years. But of course, the population is still continuing to grow in West Hartford, and they realized that the high school was getting a little tight for the current population. So there's actually a group of citizens called the Citizens Committee on High School Curricula, and they reported in March of 1954 that it was undesirable and uneconomical to remodel the Hall High School any further, and there had been plans for large additions to be added to this building, and they kind of decided to just scrap all those in favor of constructing 2 new high schools. So the first high school that opened up was Conard High School. And Conard High School, the plans for it had basically been approved in 1954, and the chairman of the Board of Education at that time was Frederick U. Conard, and so the school was named after him, and he actually died in 1954, just after the plans had been approved. As soon as the Conard was opened in 1957, preparation went underway to create a second new school, and this time it would be on the north side of town. So the plan was to have one on the south side and one on the north side. And it wasn't necessarily clear if the new school would replace this old high school or not, but they went ahead with the plans to pursue it. So the new high school, the new Hall High School, opened on North Main Street in 1970. It actually was the Latin Inn property. It was a big farm up there on North Main Street that it took over. And the new high school was dedicated following a really emotional farewell party to this old building, which was for a very long time known as Old Hall High. There was a Center Resources Committee that was established in 1968 to try to figure out what to do with this old building. And it actually was a debate for many, many years about what to do with this building. The initial idea was to sell it for a commercial use. It ended up just kind of being abandoned and lying idle on a prime piece of real estate. They discussed whether they should tear it down or enlarge it. Should they build a new town hall or add to the existing one that was already getting small for them? And then in 1984, voters actually approved a bond referendum to actually renovate this old Hall High School and move the town offices here to this building. So it took several years. It opened in 1987 with 110,000 square feet of office space. And the renovation cost about $5.6 million. And one of the things, in addition to creating this beautiful building that we all know of today as Town Hall, and providing all of this wonderful office space, including the Town Hall Auditorium, which probably many of you have attended an event on site here. It also restored these really fabulous WPA murals that are actually in the town clerk's office. And so these murals, which are by Walter Corder, they had been part of a WPA project, and they depict scenes of Connecticut history, and the location of them in the building when it was Hall High School was actually in the library. And so part of this project of renovating the building actually restored and preserved the paintings, so they're still on display today in the town clerk's office and are just a really great piece of history for us to have here in town. So we thought it very fitting. Today, it's September 9th, 2020, so tomorrow will be the anniversary of laying that cornerstone of the old Hall High School. And of course, I'm sure William H. Hall was just so thrilled and honored to have the school named after him. And appropriately, the new Hall High School, of course, now carries his name, and this today we know of as West Hartford Town Hall. So probably a piece of history that you drive by every day and might not have ever heard the story. I hope you learned something new, and we'll see you next week. Bye.